We've all been told to keep a cool head when the pressure's on, right? To push our emotions aside and just use cold, hard logic. But what if that's just plain wrong? Today we're going to dig into a really cool study that asks a pretty wild question. Could our feelings actually be a vital part of thinking strategically?
So this is the big myth we're going to tackle. For literally centuries, we've thought of emotion as this messy, irrational thing that just gets in the way of a good decision. It clouds your judgment, we say. But what if that's not its job at all? Let's see if we can bust this myth wide open.
Okay, so before we can even get to emotions, we have to understand this fundamental challenge that every strategist faces, whether you're playing chess or running a company. I like to call it the thinking about thinking problem. Basically, how far down the rabbit hole do you go?
Let's make this super real with an example from the research. So imagine you run a car company. You're trying to decide whether to dump billions into self-driving cars. Well, that decision doesn't happen in a bubble, right? It totally depends on what you think your biggest competitor is going to do. But of course, their decision depends on what they think you're going to do. And just like that, you're trapped in this mental hall of mirrors.
And boom, here it is visually. This is that crazy infinite loop. I'm thinking about what you're thinking about what I'm thinking. I mean, where does it end? In pure game theory, this could literally go on forever. But we're humans. We have to stop somewhere. The million-dollar question is, where?
So researchers have a name for this, and it's actually pretty straightforward. It's called your level of reasoning. Think of it like this. Level 0 is just picking something at random, not thinking at all. Level 1 means you're thinking one step ahead of that. Level 2, you're thinking one step ahead of the level 1 players. You get the idea. A higher level just means you're trying to outthink your opponent by going deeper.
Okay, that's the theory. But how in the world do you actually measure something that's happening inside somebody's brain? You can't just ask them, hey, what level are you reasoning at? So the researchers needed this ingenious little tool. And they found one in behavioral economics called the guessing game. It is perfectly designed to make this hidden process visible.
All right, here's how it works. The rules are super simple, but the strategy is anything but. Everybody in a group picks a number between 0 and 1,000. Then you calculate the average of all those numbers. The winner is whoever picked the number closest to 2/3 of that average. So to win, you can't just pick a number. You have to guess what everyone else is going to guess. If you think everyone's a level 0 thinker just guessing randomly, the average will be around 500. 2/3 of that is 333, so you guess 333. But if you think everyone else is also going to guess 333, you do the next step. You'd guess 2/3 of that, which is 222. See how it works?
And this is what's so brilliant about the game. It's not about being a math genius. If everyone else in the room is a level 1 thinker and you're a level 10 thinker, you are going to lose, badly. The goal is to figure out the mind of the crowd and then just be one single step ahead. It's a game of social intelligence. All right, now here comes the big twist. This is where it gets really good. The researchers took this clever game and added one crucial element. Before playing, they put people into different emotional states. So the big question became, does feeling scared or amused or just neutral change how deeply you think?
The experiment was set up in two main parts. First, there was a no feedback phase. For 9 rounds, people just played completely blind. They had no idea what others chose or what the winning number was. Then came the with feedback phase. For another 7 rounds, after each guess, they were told the actual target number. This let them learn, adapt, and change their strategy.
So how did they get people to feel these things? Well, it's pretty simple actually. Movie clips. The neutral group got to watch a chill nature documentary. The negative group, oof, they watched clips from scary horror movies designed to make them feel fear. And the positive group got to watch a bunch of funny prank videos to get them feeling amused.
All right, the stage is set. We've got the strategic game, the different emotions, and the 2 learning conditions. So what happened? Well, the results were probably not what you're thinking.
Now, take a look at this. This is what happened in that first phase, the no feedback part. And honestly, it's kind of a mess. The lines representing the different emotional groups are all tangled up. Basically, without any feedback, people were just guessing, and their feelings didn't really seem to help or hurt in any predictable way.
This right here is the critical moment. What happens when you start giving these emotionally charged brains some actual data to work with? Does that change the game? Oh yeah, it changes everything.
Whoa, now this is where it gets fascinating. This chart shows the depth of reasoning, and the difference is just crystal clear. The neutral group,
our calm nature documentary watching folks, they showed the deepest level of reasoning. You can see their numbers dropped lower and lower as they learned. The fearful, negative group, they're right there in the middle. But look at the amused, positive group. Their reasoning was the shallowest. They just didn't adapt as much. And this wasn't just some abstract difference in thinking. It translated directly into who was actually winning the game. This table shows who was the most accurate. And look, it's the same story. The neutral group had the highest accuracy. They were winning more often. The negative, fearful group was second best, and the positive, amused group, they were the least accurate. A calm, neutral state beat both fear and
So what does all this mean for us, in the real world?
This is a huge deal. It suggests that our feelings aren't just this random static that messes up our logical thinking. No, they're an active and maybe even essential part of the system that regulates how we process information and strategize.
And this isn't some brand new, out-of-the-blue idea. The brilliant Nobel laureate Herbert Simon suggested this decades ago. He said emotions might be functional interrupters of thinking. A fancy way of saying, they're our brain's way of telling us when to stop overthinking and just make a call. This experiment is like a perfect demonstration of his theory in action.
All right, let's wrap this up with the big takeaways. First, and this is the big one, emotions don't just cloud our judgment, they regulate it. Second, that regulation really kicks into gear when we start getting feedback from the world around us. Third, a calm, neutral state seems to be the sweet spot for deep, adaptive strategic thinking. Fourth, negative feelings like fear can focus us, sure, but not as effectively as being neutral. And finally, positive emotions, like being amused, might actually make us think less deeply, relying more on mental shortcuts.
And that leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to chew on. In a high-stakes business deal or a tough competition, should you lean into that feeling of fear to keep you sharp? Or does this research suggest that the ultimate strategic advantage comes from finding a state of complete emotional calm? Something to think about.